What's up, everybody? Welcome to Jump Wave. Today we are going to be doing a cover of The Model by Kraftwerk on the Korg Volca Sample 2 using only the factory samples. This song is in the key of A minor and has a tempo of 62 beats per minute. So let's set our tempo on the Volca. First thing we're going to do is clear our pattern by holding down Function and selecting Step 16. Now, let's set up our samples. On part 1, we're going to have sample 11, kick sub. On part 2, we're going to have sample 23, snare machine. On part 3, we're going to have sample 45, closed hat loose. On part 4, we're going to have sample 102, vintage pad. On part 5, we're going to have sample 120, Dyna strings. And on part 6, we're going to have 102, vintage pad. Now that we have our samples set up, let's begin programming our pattern. We're going to start with our drums. This drum pattern is going to repeat throughout the entire song, so once we have it set up here, we don't need to change it for subsequent patterns. So starting on part 1, we're going to go to step mode, and we're going to put a kick on steps 1, 4, 5, 9, 12, and 13. Now, let's go to the decay knob here, and we're going to turn the decay of the sample down to 25. Let's move over to part 2, and we're going to put a snare hit on steps 3, 7, 11, and 15. Now, let's move over to part 3, and we're going to put a hi-hat on every step 1 through 16. Let's lower the volume of these hats to about 60 and set the decay at about 20. And let's listen. Cool. Now that our drums are done, let's set up our bass. Let's move over to part 4. Now you may be wondering how we're going to make this sample pad sound like a bass. Well, we're going to take advantage of the Volca Sample's loop function to create sustained tones, which we can then shape into something that has a really nice synth bass sound. To turn on loop mode, we hold down Function and select step 11. Red light indicates that loop mode is now on. And if we play the part, we can hear how it begins to repeat. The sample is looping, and when the sample gets to the end of its length, it repeats. But if we adjust the length of the sample by making it shorter, it will repeat faster. And if we make the sample really short, it's going to repeat fast enough to give us a sustained tone, kind of like an oscillator. And if we adjust the start point just right, we can set the pitch of this tone of a C note. So if we set the start point at 2 and we set the length at 4, that's going to give us a C note. Now if we set the decay at 40 and the high cut at 110, we'll have a nice sounding bass once we program some low notes. So let's do that. Let's sequence our bass. Our notes for this pattern are going to be A, C, E, and G, and they're going to be on steps 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So let's put those down. On 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So how do we make these steps play different notes? Well, the cool thing about the Volca Sample is the ability to lock parameter changes in per step. So if we hold our finger down on the step and hold down Function, take our finger off the step, and then we turn the speed knob, we can now change the note value of this specific step. And you can make any parameter change this way. And actually for the labeled parameters here, you don't even need to hold down function. You can just hold down the step and then change the parameters. So we only need to hold down function for the secondary parameters, like the note value. It's kind of like a shift function there. So these note values are chromatic, meaning each note value represents one note. For example, our sample is tuned to a C note, so C would be 0, and one note value up would be C sharp. 2 would be D, 3 would be D sharp, 4 would be E, 5 would be F, so on and so forth. It also goes into the negative. -1 would be B, -2 would be B flat, 3 would be A, so on and so forth. So it goes 24 note values up and 24 note values down. So 2 octaves up, 2 octaves down. So we're going to press and hold down step 1, and while continuing to hold, we're going to press and hold function, take our finger off the step, and then we're going to turn the speed knob to -15, which is going to give us an A. And we'll do the same thing for step 4, -15A. Step 5 is going to be C -12, so 1 octave down. Step 6 is A15 again, -15. Step 7 is C -12. Step 8 is going to be another A -15. Steps 9 and 12 are going to be E -20. That's a cool little trick there. You can hold down multiple steps at once and make changes. Step 13 is going to be a G -17. Step 14, E -20. 15, G -17. And 16, E -20. And let's listen to our bass line. All right, now that we have our bass set up, let's move over to part 5 and set up our chord. So we're going to have notes on all the steps 1 through 16, and the actual chord progression in the verse parts is A minor and E minor. So there are 2 ways that we could program this. We could have 3 different parts, each playing a note of the triad, using our loop trick like we did with the bass. If you watch some of my other videos, that's one way that I normally will create chords on the Volca sample. Another way we can do it is we can just find one of our samples and pitch it up and down. And that's kind of an imperfect way of doing it, but that's the quick and easy way, and today that's the way we're going to do it for this song. So we're going to use sample 120, Dyna strings. Now, this sample isn't actually playing a chord. It sounds like it's playing more of an octave. But for this song, because the bass is playing the third and the root, with this chord, with this octave part playing over top of it, it's going to kind of imply the sound of the chord progression. So you're still going to get that sound even though it's not actually playing a whole triad chord. So I've done it both ways, and playing the whole triad chord here kind of takes away a lot of the sonic real estate from the bass and the synth leads. And I want to keep the focus on them because that's where the fun is. So I think sample 120 is the best way to go about it. But I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you would do here. So anyway, for steps 1 through 8, we're going to have A +9. So again, you can hold down multiple steps at once. And steps 9 through 16 are going to be E +4. Now this chord part is just kind of playing a kind of a staccato kind of rhythm throughout. It's very mechanical. It's Kraftwerk after all. So we're going to turn the decay down pretty low to 25, and we're going to do a high cut at 110. All right, let's listen. Cool. All right, now that we have the bass and the chord progression part done, we're going to move over to part 6 now, and we're going to program our lead synth line. All right, let's move over to part 6 now, and we're going to do the same loop mode trick for part 6 that we did for our bass on part 4. So we're going to turn loop mode on, hold down function, select step 11, and we're going to set the length at 4 and the start at 2. And we're going to have notes on steps 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 13, 14, and 15, and 16. And these are actually the same notes as the bass part. This synth part is the intro of the song, and it kind of just mimics the bass part. I wish that the Volca sample had copy and paste on it, because that would be cool if I could just copy part 4 over to part 6. But we're not there yet. Maybe Korg, if you're listening, maybe you could add that in a future software update, some copy and paste. That would be great. Thank you so much. Anyway, step 1 is going to be A-3, as is step 4, A-3. Step 5 is going to be C0. Step 6, A-3. Step 7, C0. 8, A-3. Step 9 and step 12 are going to be E-8. Step 13 is going to be G-5. (14) is going to be E-8. 15, G-5. And 16, E-8. So let's listen to it all together now. Do a little high cut on the lead there. Volume down to about 115. All right, well, we're done with part 1, so let's save it onto memory 1, and we save by holding down function and memory, and then we select the part that we want to save it on. So we're going to save it on memory 1. That's part 1. Now we saved it, and we're also going to save it on part 2. All right, now we can start work on part 2. And the cool thing is that most of the hard work is done. The drums, the bass, the chord progression, it's all the same for part 2. Only thing we need to change are the notes on part 6. So the last part was kind of the intro of the song, and this part, part 2, is going to be our melody line that's that they sing over in the verses. So we're going to have notes on steps 1, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 13, and 16. Step 1 is going to be A-3. Step 6 is going to be C0. Step 7 is B-1. Step 8 is A-3. Step 9 is B-1. Step 12 is G-5. Step 13 is E-8. And so is step 16. And let's listen. All right, great. Now we're done with part 2. So let's save it. Let's hold down Function, Memory, and we're going to save it on 2. And let's hold down Function, Memory, and let's save it on 3. All right, and the same thing with part 3 here. We're going to keep the foundation of what we've already built with the drums and the bass and the chord progression, and we're just going to change the synth melody on part 6. So part 3 is actually the part that comes after the bridge, which we haven't programmed yet, but we're going to program next. So this part is that arpeggio part that comes in after the bridge part. So anyways, we're going to have steps on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 15. So we're going to have notes on all the steps except 14 and 16. So notes on all the steps except 14 and 16. So step 1 is going to be E positive 4. Step 2 is going to be C 0. Step 3 is going to be G negative 5. Step 4 is going to be C 0. Step 5 is going to be E positive 4. Step 6 is going to be C 0. Step 7 is going to be E positive 4. Step 8 is going to be F positive 5. Step 9 is going to be E positive 4. Step 10 is going to be B negative 1. Step 11 is going to be G negative 5. Step 12 is going to be B negative 1. Step 13 is E positive 4. And step 15 is going to be D positive 2. All right, let's listen. Volume down just a little bit to about 100. Yeah, turn that volume down to about 100 there on that synth part. All right, great. Well, we're done with parts 1, 2, and 3. Let's save that on memory 3. And let's also save it onto memory 4. Now, memory 4 is going to be the first of 4 measures. So 4, 5, 6, and 7 are going to be the bridge section. And we have more than one chord change here. So the chord progression changes from C to B minor, A minor, G, and then it ends on an E. So the drums stay the same, but our bass does change. So let's go over to part 4. And we're going to have notes on steps 1, 3, 4, 7, 9, 11, 12, and 16. Steps 1 and 4 are C negative 12. Step 3 and 7 are C 0. Steps 9 and 12 are B negative 13. And steps 11 and 16 are going to be B negative 1. So it's doing a kind of like an octave bass thing. It's the low note and then the higher note. So it's playing the octaves of those two notes. All right. Now moving over to part 5, we're going to open the decay up here all the way to 127 because we want a more sustained string sound here. So we're going to have notes on steps 1 9, and 16. So only 3 notes here. On step 1, this is going to be a C0. Step 9 is going to be B-1. And step 16 is going to be A-3. Now let's move over to part 6 and do our lead synth line. So we're going to have notes on steps 1, 9, and 16, just like our chord. So step 1 is going to be C +12. Step 9 is going to be B +11. And step 16 is going to be A +9. All right, and let's listen to it all together now. All right. So it sounds kind of funny there because that's just the first part of the chord progression. So let's save it now. Let's hold down Function, Memory, and we're going to save it onto part 4. And we're also going to save it onto part 5. We're also going to save it onto part 6. Now let's load back up pattern 5 here. And we're going to change the bass on part 4. So step 1 and 4 are going to be G-17. Steps 3 and 7 are going to be G-5. Step 9 and 12 are going to be G-17. And steps 11 and 15 are going to be G-5. So as you guessed, we're just playing a G throughout this pattern. So let's move over to part 5 now. Steps 1 and 9, that's all we need here, are going to be G-5. And now let's move over to our synth line here on part 6. And we're going to have a G+7 on step 1. And that's it. Let's listen. All right. Let's save it now. Function, Memory, let's save it onto part 5. And let's load up part 6 again. So pattern 6 here is almost identical to pattern 4 with just a few changes here. So on part 4, this is our bass part, we're going to change the note on step 16 to a B-1 on step 15. So no note on 16, now it's on step 15 and it's a B-1. Now let's move over to part 5. We're going to take the note off of step 16. That's it for that. And we're going to move over to part 6 and take the note off of step 16 here as well. And let's listen to that. Cool. Let's save it onto memory 6. And let's save it onto memory 7. So let's make some changes to our bass part on part 4. Step 1 and 4 are going to be E-8. Steps 3 and 7 are going to be E+4. Steps 9 and 12 are E-8. And steps 11 and 15 are E+4. Moving over to part 5, we're going to change the notes on steps 1 and 9, both to E+4. As you guessed, we're just playing an E chord through this pattern. All right, let's move over to part 6. And on step 1, we're going to have an E+16. On step 9, it's a G-sharp +20. Step 12, we're going to add a note, and it's going to be an A+21. Step 13 is going to be a B+23. And let's listen to it all together now. All right, great. Let's go ahead and let's save it now onto memory 7. All right, great. Now that we have all 4 of our bridge patterns done, let's listen to them all together. And to do that, we use the chaining feature on the Volca Sample. So to chain patterns together, you press and hold memory like you would to load up a pattern. And you select the first pattern that you want to chain together. And while continuing to hold it, you select the last pattern that you want to chain together. So now our screen is indicating that patterns 4 through 7 are now chained together. So when we hit play, we're going to hear pattern 4 play, pattern 5 play, pattern 6 play, pattern 7 play, and then it'll go back to 4. So they're going to play right after one another. So let's listen to them all together. Sounds like the Dyna strings part there on memory 7 kind of cuts out kind of early. So let's load back up pattern 7. And let's go over to part 5. And let's just add another E+4 here. Cool. So we'll save that. All right, so we're pretty much done with programming the different parts on here. The only thing left to do now is to just kind of play the song and cycle through the different patterns. So listen to the original, you'll get a feel for the pattern there, but that's pretty much the whole song. There's some extra production things going on in there, but this is the meat and potatoes of it. So that's the model by Kraftwerk on the Korg Volca Sample 2 using only the factory samples. Let me know in the comments what you thought. What did I miss? What samples would you have used instead? And of course, what other songs would you like to hear me cover on the Volca? If you like this video, please like this video. And if you dig what I'm doing here on this channel, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day.